Hi there, and welcome to the Fish Tank Barn. While I was visiting Florida and speaking for the Pasco County Aquarium Society, I had the privilege of visiting the home of Grant and Shelby from the Garden of Eder. If you're not aware of Grant and Shelby, I would say they're known for two specific things. One being the ornamental shrimp that they sell through the Garden of Eder website, and two, the beautiful aquascapes that they've taken to shows and have won many awards for. They have put together an absolutely amazing fish house with over 400 aquariums, mostly dedicated to shrimp, some amazing aquascapes, and they also have an amazing backyard with a koi pond, plant grow-out tubs, and many other tubs containing both shrimp and fish. So let's go ahead and start exploring all there is to know about the Garden of Eder. Before I hand the mic over to Grant to give you a tour of the inside of the house, I do want to give you a lay of the land of how the inside of the house is laid out. While there are over 400 tanks, I really felt they did an amazing job with setting up the fish house. Yes, there are a large number of tanks, but I really didn't feel that the tanks overwhelmed the living space of the house itself. So I really thought they did an outstanding job with how they set it up. So now that I've given you kind of the lay of the land, let me turn the mic over to Grant so he can tell you all about the shrimp and fish that live inside the house. All right, so it looks like we've got some blue dreams here. This is one that I've played around with a little bit in the fish room, but definitely nice looking blue dream shrimp for sure.
Yeah, and I've got them on white substrate because they're one of the only Neocaridina that kind of don't wash out on white. And then we've got some more black bar endlers in here, but we have also got our yellow 24 karat Neocaridina line. This is Shelby's tank though. She moved the shrimp from outside in here, threw her best ones in, got them going, got them breeding, and she got some monsters in there and entered them in the last international contest and took second place. So those are some really nice, bright, vibrant yellow shrimp. And they're super hardy and resilient enough that the larger female endlers don't really pick them off. These are the shrimp that Chris Lukop had just posted as the new Neocaridina, the Sunset Koi variants. It may not be the exact same genetics, but this shrimp right here that's got the red head and orange body, that's basically it. There is a couple more in there that are very similar. The one in the back has got, oh, that's a snail, never mind. Far back enough and my eyesight's getting pretty bad in my older age, but there's a couple of them. It's not like a large amount of percentage of the babies that come out with the multi-tone coloration, but this is literally just the second generation. My first one I only had two, and neither one of them were that red and orange combined. So that's my Neocaridina project for the house right now. And then the next tank over, we have our blue-legged Posos Sulawesi shrimp. So this is one we were actually able to source homebred, and they're thriving in that 10-gallon aquarium. It's probably time to bust them up and split them into two tanks, but they're not really like a special or interesting looking shrimp. So I think one tank is enough, and I know where to get more of them if something ever crashes or something like that. All right, now these are some super tigers. It is a variant of Caridina shrimp that you should be able to keep in Neocaridina parameters, no problem. They don't like it when it gets too warm, so if your tanks get to like 78 degrees or warmer, definitely avoid doing the tiger shrimp and stick to Neos. But if you just have tap water that maintains a decent amount of GH and not that high of KH and not a really high pH, somewhat neutral pH, these will breed and do just fine. So it's a variant you can throw with Neocaridina, and you don't have to worry about crossbreeding and getting wilds. And they've got a nice yellow head and blue tiger stripe body.
So now my pH, like in Michigan, is like around 8. Is that too much for them?
I would say it might affect baby survival rate just a little bit. So instead of getting 30 babies out of every clutch, you might have some issues with some of the babies molting, and you might only get 20 to survive. But as long as your water isn't like super soft or super hard, and there's like 5 to the 10 GH, they should be fine, and you should be able to get them to breed in there. I'm more worried about the temperature getting above 78. When we had a hurricane come through, the only really issue in the house was the temperatures getting up above 80, and that's when I had issues in a couple tanks, and they were primarily tiger tanks. These are the pure black line or crystal black shrimp. They're a pure black line because they only throw black and white babies. You won't get any crystal reds, you won't get any snow whites or golden bees. Basically what you see is what you get, and you don't have to worry about culling unless you want to focus on a nicer, brighter white or a certain pattern in the black, like 2 bars or Missoura or something like that. And then these are one of my cross projects where I'm trying to make my own fancy tigers. I took red tigers with blue body and crossed them with pure red lines, and I thought I'd be able to get pure red line fancy tigers by making it like that. And first generation all came out crystal black tivy basically looking, and I guess the blue pigment coming from the tiger turned out to be a black dominant gene and transferred that over. So there is a nice mix, but you do get some of these reds that do have some of the blue body and blue coloration to them. So I'm trying to get that to grow up with more stripes and more solid patterns and pigments. So that's a project shrimp tank, and I do have another one of those going up here. But I need to make one a cull tank and one a primary tank, and I haven't done that yet. I just kind of got both of them going and breeding and doing their thing. So hopefully when we're done with some of this traveling, I can crack out those and get them going. But I kind of like the variation of different phenotypes going in the tank. The next tank over, we've got our orange eye blue tigers. These came from Plamsky, another breeder down south that had to get rid of his entire shrimp room. And I didn't get rid of all of the steels out of the tank. So those were super, super small babies back in February, and now they're, you know, sub-adults, juveniles. And I definitely got to get them out of the tank, but I'm not worried if they crossbreed with the orange eye blue tigers, because none of the babies will have orange eyes if that happens, and I'll be able to pick the difference out and keep the colony pure, and then I just have another project tank to work with when I split them out. Then we've got what looks like a crystal red tank, but if you look closer, there are some red wines. You got a red King Kong here, a one stripe here, an extreme there. So this is like a Michelin tank where you'll get a mixture of Taiwan bees and crystal reds. But I haven't taken out all of the male crystals, so it's not positive that all of these have the Taiwan bee gene or not. So it's a stepping stone to a project that I got these crystals from somebody else and didn't know that they had those genetics involved. So I kind of just let them do their own thing, but that's what a Michelin shrimp is. And I highly recommend you buy crystal shrimp that are Michelins, because they have the possibility of throwing out a $25 shrimp, one of the more expensive ones, and you don't have to purchase that one. And if these do pop out in your offspring, then you know you're doing everything right, and it gives you the confidence to go out and buy the more expensive shrimp to upgrade your collection. And we just got a smorgasbord of different variety of tang tai. However, I would have skipped this tank 2 days ago, but yesterday, or maybe the day before, I noticed this yellow crystal looking shrimp, and it doesn't come up well on camera. Like, even me trying to take a picture without like editing it too much to get it to look like that, it doesn't show up. But like, does that not look like a yellow variety of a crystal shrimp?
Yeah.
So there is another one in the tank that doesn't look that good, but that one's pregnant. So hopefully some of her babies will come out looking good, and if not, I'll take her and the other one that's swimming around in the tank somewhere, and hopefully split them off and get my own variety of those going. I haven't really seen anything quite like that, exactly like that here in the States, and not really online overseas either. So it could be a new strain if I select it out and get it going. And then, because the lights don't extend, we've got some cheetah tiger shrimp in here. Real nice iridescent purple blue coloration to them, and they're super hardy. I actually think these ones are a little bit stronger and hardier than the super tigers. They breed pretty easily, can withstand a wide range of different parameters, and they do have a little bit wider range of phenotypes. And when I crossbreed these with crystal shrimp and other tai-bees, I get a lot of different varieties of phenotypes. So they're a really cool shrimp to work with. Now this is a cool shrimp. This is a calcio. They can throw reds, blues, and different color variants, but I actually have some orange eyes popping out of these. So this is one of my project tanks that I'm kind of working on, just selective breeding those. There's another one of the orange eyes over here in the corner. But they do breed a lot. They're not a shrimp that sells a lot. And so it is kind of hard finding a home with all these tanks. They're kind of taken up, and the last thing I want is another calcio tank. So I do gotta figure out a way to cull those off without affecting anything else. So they're probably gonna go into like a random tank, but I keep finding these rare oddballs in my cull tanks, you know? We've got some orange-eyed royal blue tigers. These are one of the lines I'm known for. I've won more awards with those than any of the other shrimp in the house. So they're one of the shrimp that still sells for a really decent amount in the hobby. When you first started keeping shrimp, some of the shrimp went from $100 down to $3. These are one where they've actually kind of raised in price just a little bit. So then I talked about a shrimp that went from $100 to $3. And if you see the solid yellow ones, these one I culled this tank recently, so there shouldn't be a lot of solid yellow ones running around. But the problem is the ones without any color in the head. That's a reverse Missoura. So I call those headless horsemen. And then the opposites, where you just have the yellow on the head and clear body, I call those lemon heads. And the only problem with these guys is as they mature and grow age, the clear part can turn yellow. So you have to keep an eye on them, and a lot of the work involved was just keeping the ones and breeding the ones that stayed that pigmentation the longest to get to where I'm at now. And like this one needs to be culled, it's pregnant, so I'll probably let her release her babies and then move her into just a normal yellow King Kong tank. But all the other shrimp in the tank that aren't solid yellow are worth $15 to $25, where the ones that are just solid yellow are only worth $3, $5 at the most. So a shrimp that went from $100 because the first person brought it in the United States, and then when 2 people had it, the price dropped to $50, and then when 4 people had it, it dropped to $10.
It just keeps kind of going down
by
and
the
down.
time it got in my hands as a home breeder and I was able to get them out and start selling them, it goes from $5 to $3 real quickly. So the fact that I got a mutation, I bred them out, now I have a shrimp that's in more demand, sells for more money because of it. Even though it's the same care, water change wise, the only thing is that I got to come in here and I got to pull out all the ugly ones a little bit more frequently than some of the other tanks. So these are just a regular crystal shrimp tank. If they're not a pure line, you can get a mix. Black is dominant, so you do see more of the black shrimp swimming around in the tank. There is a few red crystals in there though, because the line aren't pure. So you'll get a mix of both when you buy just regular crystal shrimp. And this is one of my favorite creations. I made my own crazy blue steels from scratch using tangerine tigers and shadow pandas. And out of this line, I do get some greens. I'll show those to you in one of the other rooms. But the different varieties of shrimp that I made out of just that one cross, I've got probably 15 plus tanks in the house from that original tangerine tiger cross with shadow panda. And it's just made so many different variations, from blue steels to galaxy pintos to made my own yellow King Kongs from that line. So this is just one of the cooler tanks to look at, especially if your favorite color is blue. There's some gold heads, there's some green coloration and stuff like that popping around in there. So these are Spanish rib newts. These guys get a little bit bigger, and they're a little bit cooler, I think, than the eastern ones. Are a little bit smaller. They kind of more rely. The eastern ones remind me more of like the little creatures out of Men in Black, where these guys look more like beefy chunky newts. They're a little bit cuter and more personable, and this one wants more food. You saw how much I fed him. And he's the only one in the tank because he's a fatty and he eats a ton of food. And I think he'd be the size of a tennis ball if I fed him every time he played like this. These are the redhead blue body Neocaridina shrimp. So not something you see all the time. It is a little difficult to keep this coloration. A lot of times the blue wants to go clear and the red pattern wants to go all over the place. So it's taken me some time to refine this, and depending on how mature and how big they get, that red maroon will almost turn like a purple. And when I entered them into one of the shrimp contests, they were full size, mature ones, they were purple. I don't have any good ones right now because I entered them into the contest. So the nicer ones went to a different home. And here I've got some orange-eyed blue tigers crossed with some red tigers. So I got some normal tigers out of the mix. You get some more red tigers, but you also get some orange-eyed red tigers. And that was a strain that I struggled with. The only ones that you could get were imported, and even the people that were able to breed them weren't very successful with them. So instead of wasting my money on buying more and more imported shrimp, I made mine from scratch, and these guys are doing very well. That's first generation. I got to remove all the other ones out of there and just focus on the red tigers with the orange eyes. But out of that, I've got normal tigers I can work on another project and stuff like that that still are in high demand because of the hardiness and different water parameters. These are hollow eye red ghosts crossed with black tiger orange eye. And with the two different eye morphs, you get hollow eye and orange eye, I'm getting a lot of different color eyes and different kind of grades of eye color also. Some of them are even larger eyes. And if you just look in this tank, you wouldn't believe that that was just two types of shrimp that make all of these. Like that one in the back looks like a red King Kong, so I don't know if the red ghost variation is, you know, a mutation of Taiwan bees, but that to me is a flag, a signal, a clue that says it is. So definitely one of my favorite tanks. I could split that up into like 15 different tanks and different phenotypes and work on different projects out of it. And then this is my secondary tank of the Yellow King Kongs, but in this one I have even another mutation where I've got some white popping out, and these are pure Yellow King Kongs. So the white on the heads is something I'm kind of focusing on in this aquarium. I've been selling as many of the yellows, the lemon heads, and the yellow rillies all come out of here when I sell them because I want just the whites left over and try to focus on that. And it's not like a dull white. It's like a real thick, like almost a double pigment where it overlaps one another. So it's something to work on. It's just, I only got a few of them, need more. And then we've got a mixed Taiwan bee tank, a lot of shadow pandas, normal pandas, red pandas, blue bolts. The Taiwan bee genetics, you can keep all of them in the same tank and it makes kind of a Skittles mix, and they are not mixing genetics, so you're not going to get mutts out of throwing in a bunch of different colored Taiwan bees together. All of them will still be pure as long as the original starting colonies were all pure. These are the easiest Caridina shrimp, I would say, if anybody wanted to get started with something else that wasn't Neocaridina. If you're killing these, you're probably killing a lot more in your fish room. Like, you're probably wasting a lot of money and doing something really, really wrong. So these guys are tanks, they breed like crazy, and there's almost no culling to them anymore. I haven't pulled out any ugly ones in several years. So it's a really strong, hardy line. If you're looking for something to throw into a red cherry tank, this is a good companion for them. And then these are a Galaxy Pinto. These have the Serrata gene. It means they have the back line, and because of the Serrata gene is the same as the Tangerine Tiger. So how the Tangerine Tigers have a little bit more spotting than they do actually predominant stripes. These guys will get a lot more dots because of the Serrata gene. So you get dots going down the body as well as more than 9 dots on the head. And then we have some blue bolts. The funny story about these is when our hurricane wiped the power out for 21 hours, the next day when the power came on and I had the lights on, I checked this tank. It was in a different location than it is now, but the blue bolt tank, and there was only one shrimp left alive, and there was a sea of pink dead bodies because it was on one of the higher tanks in the house, and heat rises. It just got hotter in that aquarium faster than most of the other tanks, so we did have some losses. And then like a month later, I found another shrimp in that aquarium. So with those 2 shrimp, I've able to repopulate the colony, and I've got 4 tanks now of this colony going. And yeah, the line is still moving on after the last 2. And then we have one of the other surviving tanks. I talked about the tank up here with the blue bolts surviving the hurricane. This is one of the other tanks, but the blue bolts throw out another variety as well, and that's the Missouri pattern, where you have black pigment on, or a crown on the head and a blue body. So this tank has been dedicated to Misuras and producing shrimp like that. You still get a couple blue bolts as culls, so I always sell my blue bolts out of this tank first to help me cull and work on the quality of the Misuras in the aquarium. But again, from 2 shrimp, I've got a couple thousand now. And then these are another German pinto. These are the spotted head red pintos. So there's no coloration except for white on the tail of the body, and then you'll have up to 9 dots on these guys, but they're larger dots. They're not as small as the Galaxy Pintos. So these are our blue velvets. This originally was a Caridina Stardust tank, and I thought, well, let's see who's more active in breeding. And I don't know what happened to all the Stardust shrimp, but since November last year, there was over 1,000 Stardust in that aquarium. Now it's just blue velvets. So either they got hungry and ate the other shrimp, or they died off in a water change or something like that they just couldn't handle. And the blue velvets they just started breeding and the other ones didn't. I don't know exactly what happened, but I didn't see any dead bodies or anything like that. So it's just over time I saw less and less of the tiger shrimp in there. All right, so this is like basically a farm tank, but I'm thinking about maybe converting it over to like a Dutch aquascape. I've kind of been paying attention to some of them online, but right now I've just basically gotten different stems that I kind of like, throw them in the tank. I'm not running any CO2 or fertilizer or anything like that. We just added some fluval stratum. It's a fluval rimless aquarium from one of the aquascape contests that I just haven't had the time to aquascape yet. And I had a bunch of plants that I kind of didn't want to see them go into a shrimp tank, and I kind of wanted to put a stronger light and be able to dose any algae or anything like that if there was any from them. So they've kind of been doing really well, and I'm kind of just going to take this tank as far as I can without turning it into a high-tech aquarium. And I'm really surprised about the amount of color and how well the plants are doing for how low-tech it is. It's just got a 50 AquaClear 50 and one of the fluval planted tank lights and aqua soil. So we got some Pogostem and Helferii Downoi, we've got some Blixia, we've got some Eros, some Super Red Mini Laguidia, some Hygra Pinidifida, some Rose Maiden Crypts, some Dark Orange Laguidia, some HRA Rotala, and then the Blood Red Rotala, and I have to figure out what that still is. And then that thing right there is that, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that because I'll butcher that, but I picked that up at one of the shows and I kind of liked that, and I thought for sure it would turn green on me, but it's still nice and pink and red. So,
nice. This is a beautiful tank.
And I'm not really known for doing any like high-tech planted aquariums, so this is my like first crack at it. I've done just planted shrimp tanks with no high-tech planted light or anything. It's all been the cheapest LED lights to go over as many aquariums as I can possibly get. So, and then we do have some red calcios. There's 2 of the dwarf emerald rasboras still left in here. We did move those outside. And then there is some aquatic isopods that I just threw in here yesterday to try them out in a Caridina setting. Maybe with all the plants and stuff like that, they'll do a little bit better. So this is a scape that I originally did for the Florida State Fair, and this category is no live plants. So a lot of people in this category do like the fake plants and stuff like that, and instead I've gone through and did no plants at all. There's some red root floaters and like a little bit of moss, and that moss is like just grown from the actual dragonstone. Like there's the littlest tiniest sprig on it. After many years it's turned into that. So that wasn't on purpose, but the red root floaters were left over from one of the shows, and I kind of just wanted to see how far gone they could go and then save them, and I thought for sure that bag was done for, but they're doing pretty good in that little tank now. So
Nice.
but I enter that tank in the contest still every year because it's so easy to stuff with paper towels and drive it in the car and drain it and fill it back up at the Florida State Fair. So now this is Shelby's tank from the NEC conference that we just did in Connecticut this past, can't remember what month, but just this year. And Shelby used a lot of plants in her tank that should have had CO2, so it's not looking the best that it should. It's got a little algae issues, but her main priority has been the betta, so she's been spoiling the betta, overfeeding it a little bit too much. So it doesn't look the best, but she did beat me in the contest. She got second. My tank is right here. I got third place, but what do you think looks better now, Mike? So
yeah, that tank, they both are very nice, but I think at this point, just the way the plants are, that one looks better.
So I used a lot of low-tech plants, and you know, some of my Anubis melted on the right-hand side, so it doesn't look as good. But instead of throwing a fish in the tank, I threw a bunch of shrimp in mine, so they're cleaning the tank instead of making it dirty.
I'd have thrown fish in there, though.
And I did cheat. I did throw the bulbitis in the back afterwards. We sold one of Shelby's Aquascape tanks at one of the shows, and I offered it for a price, and the guy was like, "Oh, what will you do it for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm taking that plant back." So I took the bulbitis back. Give me 1 minute. Yep. So this is one of the custom tanks from P&W Aquariums. My buddy Harley, he runs that company, and this is his latest tank to come out. Normally they do all hand acrylic, but this one is glass. So he gave me this one to kind of scape for a little video, but then I haven't had really time to set it up or put it in a spot in the house, so we brought it to one of the shows. It didn't sell at one of the shows because it didn't have a price tag, and somebody thought we were asking way more money, like 200 plus the price of the tank. So there was a little miscommunication when you have somebody else helping you out at the booth. It is what it is, but the tank itself is like $130, and then for like an extra $100, I throw a couple plants in it and then some rock that's left over from one of our aquascapes and throw it together. So it's got some of the pogo stem and helpheri in it, and some dwarf baby tears, and just a little tiny micro nanoscape. And this is one of Shelby's aquascapes. This is one she set up for the Florida State Fair quite some time ago. It's one of my favorite tanks. She beat me for best of show one year, and I thought it was going to be with this tank. It was one of our other tanks, it was nice, but this tank in its prime was one of my favorite aquascapes. It's got the two different size pieces of wood to give the depth, but she had this really epic mini cryptocorn parva. There's a little bit of it right here, but this whole front was all carpeted in the mini cryptocorn parva, and it is just one of my favorite foreground plants, and it was like the nicest mat without CO2 or anything like that. So it's kind of a jungle right now. She's got some of the houseplant clippings just kind of growing out of it, but it's one of the oldest aquascapes in the entire house. So this right here is like my Ferrari of Caridina shrimp breeding aquariums. It's got, instead of sponge filters, it's got the what do you call these? Inline filters?
Yeah, basically.
And everything is basically housed in there, and the mechanical filtration and the flow and everything like that. I'm basically over filtering this tank by like 5 times the amount that it needs. And my basically thought process behind this was one of the breeders that I tore down his shrimp room down in Miami. A lot of his aquariums had more circulation, and he was able to keep a lot more numbers in the aquariums without having growth issues and stuff like that. So I'm gonna throw in basically one of my nicest strains of shrimp. Hopefully this video will be out before your video comes out, since you want to wait till September to post this and spread it out for the good months. But we're gonna do a baby reveal, gender reveal, basically, with the shrimp that I dump into this tank. So red shrimp for a girl, black and blue shrimp for a boy, and that'll be decided on the gender. But the type of shrimp is gonna be Galaxy Pintos. And I'm gonna put the nicest of the nicest ones in that aquarium, and then the culls will go into the next one. Now, Shelby set up the other scape for the most part. I planted it, she did all the hardscape. But this was one of my most effort aquascapes that I've done yet. I put in a lot of time and effort trying to build out the design of the wood structure. It's actually wood on the sides and not dragonstone. And I had built it 3 different times, and it basically fell apart with just trying to tweak minor adjustments to get it to fit inside the aquarium with the lid on it. And once I finally got everything done and put it into the aquarium with just a little tiny bit of substrate on it, I couldn't get it dug down far enough to get the lid. So it broke again, and I finally gave up, built it all inside the tank, and I'm actually really happy with the end result. So this is her tank from this year's Florida State Fair. Every year they have an Aquarium Beautiful contest hosted within our state fair. So along with the horse show and the rabbits and the chickens in Florida, we also show off our aquariums, and there is a youth category, and this is the tank that won Best of Show for the youth category last year, and my daughter did it all by herself. Shelby will even tell you she takes a lot of her creativity and rock work from some of the stuff that I do, but she definitely has the rules down. She follows them, and she's definitely built her own little wall cave style that I kind of started out with when I was first scaping too. So I'm really proud of her, and she's only 9 years old. So then this is her tank from the following year, last year. So you can see she's really come a long ways from this tank to the last tank, but this also won the year beforehand. So Jaden competes with her in other contests, and they kind of go back and forth, but you gotta come through next year and win one for the boys. And then we've got Jaden's tank. He didn't beat Layla in Best of Show, but I still thought this was a really nice tank, especially for a kid doing it. I do think Layla's tank was a little bit more laid out and planted a little bit nicer. The Java ferns in here did look a lot better. He has a tendency to not turn on his light that much, but it still looks great for a little cherry shrimp breeding tank. But this is his first project tank that he's getting in, going and breeding his own shrimp, and he's almost ready to start selling his first group.
Now that you've seen what the Garden of Eder has to offer on the inside, there's a whole nother world once you step outside. Immediately after going out the back door, you're greeted with this wonderful koi pool that's home to a large number of koi, as well as a couple of diamondback terrapin turtles. Immediately after the pool area, you come to this large area that holds all these IBC totes amongst the fence line. Each one of these totes is filled with a different variety of shrimp. Grant was kind enough to allow me to film underwater and capture the various shrimp that were living inside the IBC totes. One of the other activities that they had going on was the propagation of plants that they had in these blue containers. I'm not a huge plant guy, but I was still pretty impressed with what they had going on. As we head further along in the backyard, there was a small greenhouse that was home to a group of Rubbermaid containers which held some additional shrimp as well. Along with everything that we've already seen, there were a few other tubs throughout the property. I do want to showcase these two tubs in particular. The first one being home to some Vienna guppies as well as some golden white cloud minnows. And the second containing a pretty nice group of mollies. I hope that you enjoyed exploring everything that the Garden of Eder had to offer. From the house to the outside, I was extremely impressed with everything that they had going on. I'd like to thank the Pasco County Aquarium Society for having me come down to Florida to speak, and to Grant and Shelby for not only opening up their home, but also for all the hospitality they showed me the entire weekend when I was down in Florida. I hope that you stay tuned in the coming weeks, as I went on a couple of other adventures with the Garden of Eder as well. So with that, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.